The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
With so many people living longer, the fear of outliving your money becomes a reality for many of us. Will I be a financial burden? Will I outlive my money? How will I be remembered? My name is Neil Himmelstein, president of Main Street Planning Group. Please contact me by visiting mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. I will introduce you to strategies that will guarantee you will not outlive your money, that can guarantee you will not be a burden on your loved ones. Through a collaborative approach, we will uncover solutions that offer tax-efficient strategies, lifetime income, and legacy planning, choice, organization, direction, and education. That is the code we stand behind. Contact mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. And listen to me every Friday at 3 p.m. as I host the Main Street Code for Financial Success, right here on 103.9 LI News Radio. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I'm here every Friday at 3 o'clock. And when we talk about our code, we talk about choice, organization, direction, and education. And we've helped hundreds of advisors and clients across the United States with regards to life insurance, disability, long-term care, annuities, and life settlement. And we are completely independent, meaning we don't work for an insurance company. We represent over 35 insurance companies. We work for you, the client that has needs, and we want to give you solutions, not products. Solutions is what it's all about. And if you don't have a financial team of an attorney, accountant, a financial advisor, and an insurance specialist, we'll help you put one together, because your plan needs to coordinate with everything you do. And today, I'd really want to talk about survivorship insurance. Not enough is talked about it. As a matter of fact, there's very few companies in the state of New York that even offer this type of insurance. And survivorship insurance is usually based on two people, like a husband and wife. And when they pass, it goes to their children, let's say. So it's very common in estate planning to have survivorship insurance. And the reason it's common is because there's an unlimited spousal, when it comes to estate planning, your spouse can inherit everything without there being any estate tax. So the estate tax occurs on the second death. And that's why survivorship is a very important estate planning tool. But we use it for a lot of other things as well that which may or may not be in common conversation. One of the things that we use it for, not just for estate planning, but for special needs. Now understand, if you have two lives, the cost of insurance is much lower than it is on one life. So the cost of leveraging a lot more money to, let's say, your children or your special needs children is a lot less if it's on two lives rather than one. So that's another use we use survivorship quite often, is we might have a child that needs special needs, or it's on government programming, and they can't inherit our other assets. Because if they inherit cash, if they inherit a house, and they're on some sort of Medicaid or government-assisted program, they now lose that assistance because they now have cash, and that cash immediately gets sucked out of their estate, out of their ability to live, and especially if they can't control it. So you want to have a special needs trust insured. Now, a special needs trust can be the beneficiary of any life insurance contract or any annuity. People don't realize, I just had a situation where we had 5 children or 5 grandchildren, and 2 of the grandchildren needed special needs. Well, there was a trust established, but the beneficiary should have been the trust. Instead, the grantor, or the grandparent here, left everything to everybody else and nothing to the children with special needs. So there's no pot of gold for those grandchildren that had special needs that really could use the money long term because they'll never be able to work. They are, both autistic and have issues. So with that in mind, survivorship insurance works on 2 deaths. The other thing that I've used it for that many advisors haven't is because it's typically a cash value policy. It could be on a whole life chassis, or it could be on an index universal life, or variable or regular universal life. Those are cash value products. Now, I mentioned before, because the accumulation in a cash value policy is tax deferred, and you could take out the money tax free, sometimes, if the situation's right, we'll have a very cash rich survivorship policy where cash can be taken out as an additional retirement vehicle, but we're leveraging the fact that the cost of life insurance is going to be that much less for leveraging that much more money, so we can accumulate that much more money and take it out on a tax-free basis as an additional retirement tool. So survivorship life insurance can be used in a lot of different areas. It's not often talked about, but it is a very important tool in any type of life insurance planning. Usually you want to take care of your spouse, or if you're single, you might want to take care of your children, or if you're a business, you'll have, most insurance is on an individual, but this is a very special type of insurance that's on 2 individuals. Typically, it's husband and wife. It doesn't really work unless you have a different kind of scenario on a business standpoint, on a buy-sell agreement, but it works really well with a husband and wife. Now, I mentioned that most assets get transferred to your spouse without any estate tax. However, one of the things you have to be very careful of is inheriting IRAs as a spouse. Typically, let's say you're older and your spouse is confined to a nursing home or is needing care, and you leave them this big IRA, or maybe they're on Medicaid, and you have this IRA and you leave it to them, or you've never changed the beneficiary, that money starts to come out as income, and you have to take your required minimum distributions as income, and it could impinge the other spouse. Put them in a tax situation that they weren't in before, or, it could create issues. So you really need to do planning, and do planning properly. So survivorship life is a tool in the whole planning process, as is, long-term care, of course. Now, there are now, outside New York, and we're trying to get it in New York, actually survivorship life policies where you can put on a rider and have 2 people for long-term care insurance as well. So it's a really interesting product that came out last year, where you're using like a hybrid life policy, cash value policy, that actually has 2 different long-term care possibilities. And why would we do that instead of 2 individual policies? Again, to save the cost of insurance on the internal. So we always have to be creative, because, listen, budgets and everything we keep in mind, and what's the most cost efficient, I hate to say cheap or inexpensive, what's the most cost efficient way to protect our assets and to pass them on as a legacy and to accumulate our assets in a tax favored basis? Let's face it, the game is to either increase our net worth or reduce our expenses. So this might be a way to reduce the expenses and increase the leverage of the death benefit, which would give your heirs and your legacy much greater effect. Most survivorship policies, when we're used for estate planning, we will set up an irrevocable life insurance trust as well. And the reason we set up the irrevocable life insurance trust, just as a review, because we talk about this a lot, is so that that money and that death benefit will be out of your estate. And inside that trust, you can dictate when your children or grandchildren or great-grandchildren get the money. So you may want to say, I don't want this one to have it till they're 35 years old or till they come of age, or give them 1/3 when they're 21 and 1/3 when they're 30. All kinds of different ways you can do inside that trust. And once the trust is the beneficiary, the trust dictates how that money gets distributed. So a very effective tool to combine survivorship life insurance does with an irrevocable life insurance trust. Great planning, great moves, and typical of some of the work we do in combination with making sure you're prepared for your long-term care. We are coming up on break. This is Neil Himmelstein, Main Street Planning Group. Best way to reach me is 631-647-4694 or visit me at themainstreetcode.com. Or if you miss an episode, you can always catch me on Apple or Spotify, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. Before the break, we were talking about survivorship insurance, something you may want to consider for your special situation. And like I tell everybody, everybody's situation is different and unique. So you need somebody with independent thinking and lots of planning opportunities to coordinate with any kind of estate planning attorney you're going to or accountant you're going to. Let's coordinate your plan so that everything works for you. I just want to give you some of the solutions that we're using in coordination with other things. Nothing works in a vacuum. If somebody just sells you a life policy and doesn't talk about your will and your trust and your this and your that, they're not doing the right job. And nothing works in a vacuum. Everything has to coordinate with your investments, your goals, your long-term, your short-term. Very important. And again, we specialize in protecting all these assets. Now this morning, switching topics here, we had a great discussion with the executive director of Long Island Farm Bureau, who I've had online, Bill Zelliker. And he addressed my group of accountants and attorneys that I'd started called the LAFPN. And prior to us talking, one of the topics that came up, which was very interesting and very appropriate, was nutrition. You know, some of my members of my group have lost a lot of weight. They're dieting. They're talking about carbs. They're talking about this. They're talking about... And this is a very appropriate topic for everybody. You know, what we eat is critical to our long-term health. Nutrition is number one. As one person said, I worked out my whole life, 3-4 days a week. He says, it wasn't until I really watched my carbs and everything else, the whole nutrition element, did I realize that that's what did it for me, is watching my nutrition. And this tied into the whole Farm Bureau because one of the big discussion items was agriculture and our food supply. We're fortunate on Long Island that we have great weather and we have some tremendous locally grown foods, vegetables, tomatoes, herbs. We're in a tremendous advantage. And I encourage you, and we were encouraged, shop locally. And here's why. If we have a problem with our food supply, like we did during COVID, and everybody was freaking out, you know, and Hunts Point Market is the largest marketplace. People don't even realize it here in New York. That is the largest food distributor in the United States. And they supply the whole Eastern Shore with food. They have 3 days food supply for the East Coast. 3 days. So a lot of politicians and whatnot were talking, and well, why don't we get from Mexico? Why don't we get from Canada? Well, one of the things that was brought out today is New York is very heavily regulated. So we know there's so many chemicals that are banned and everything else in our food and our food processing. You go into a supermarket, and if you buy tomatoes and they're from Mexico and this is from Argentina and this is from here, they may or may not have the same standards and chemicals to put in their food. As a matter of fact, when I go into the supermarket and I walk through the produce section, it kind of freaks me out when I see an apple that's so shiny. I want to put it on my desk. But I think about it and I go, do I really want to eat that apple? I mean, why is it so shiny and perfect looking? Give me the ones with bumps and bruises, because guess what? I know that they're natural. So we have to think about our long-term health and think about, you might have to pay a few pennies more for some local produce and whatnot because it's overregulated, because we have to pay people more here to produce it. But guess what? If it's healthier for us, if it'll increase our longevity and our quality of life, then we got to focus on it. And I encourage you, shop locally, eat locally, not just shop locally, eat locally, look at your farm stands, buy some produce that was grown here on Long Island. Very, very important. So health and wealth go hand in hand. And I think nutrition and the gut is where a lot of health problems start and end with everybody. What we eat is more important almost than how many times or how many push-ups we can do. What we eat is critical. So you do want to shop locally and be conscious of what you eat, and I thought that was a great point. Agriculture affects all of us. And the whole agricultural community is so not talked about in financial circles. We had a whole group of financial people sitting there from mostly Nassau County or Nassau-Suffolk border, and I dare to say that everybody left the room today saying, oh, why? Because agriculture affects all of us. The land that we have dedicated to agriculture and the water is what Long Island's all about. The fisheries, the oysters, the clams, the produce, wineries. This is so important to our overall health and environment. The environment alone is, if we redevelop this and make it all commercial. I'm not saying that we don't need some commercial. I'm not saying that we need all environmental. I mean, this island has changed dramatically. I mean, we had a meeting in Melville. Melville used to be all farms 30 years ago. Now it's all industrial. So, yes, we need growth, but we need to be conscious of our food supply and our environment. And, we just start destroying all this property and land, what's that going to do to our health? Why is our health important? Well, if we want to live a nice, healthy life for our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, hopefully, we need to be healthy. And medical science has found a way to keep us alive pretty much indefinitely, but in what capacity and how much health? So nutrition's number one key. Longevity is very important. And the fear of outliving your money is probably one of the biggest things that people have today. So that's why we focus in on, let's work on annuities and income streams so that you can't outlive your money. Look at your house and whatnot and maximize the value. Keep our expenses down and protect ourselves against the need for long-term care, which over 70% of individuals are going to need at some point, and over 87% of all couples, one of them will need some sort of long-term care. And it all goes back to nutrition and healthy lifestyle. And by the way, if you're nearing retirement and you're thinking about getting some sort of long-term care program or starting to establish one, it may be too late. Because if you haven't taken care of your health the last 10 or 20 years, you may not be able to get the type of program that you want to protect your health. Insurance companies, I hate to say it, to casinos. They're odds makers. If they don't see the odds are good, or they see the odds are great that you're going to make a claim, they may not offer you what you want or anything at all, because they have the right, because you're leveraging your health against a potential claim. So eating right, shopping locally is very key. Living a healthy lifestyle, important. Protecting yourself financially with long-term care, with life insurance, is about planning. Now, I'm not a doctor. I can't help you with your health, but I can make sure that you can protect your wealth and you worry about your health, and then maybe we can combine that health and wealth and have a great longevity and healthy lifestyle. And that's what we do. So thank you. It's all for today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your questions. I appreciate it. And thank you for the calls and discussing your situation with us. This is Neil Himmelstein. This is the Main Street Code for Financial Success. And the best way to reach me is 631-647-4694, or visit me at themainstreetcode.com. Or if you miss an episode and you want to see it on Spotify or Apple or YouTube, I'm all there. And have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.